Good morning and welcome everyone in the sanctuary and on Zoom to the Sunday morning worship service of Summit UU Fellowship. We are a liberal religious community choosing shared principles drawn from world religions, humanist teachings, nature, science, philosophy, and personal practices. The mission of Summit is to commit ourselves to building a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to Summit and would like to know more about us, please ask. Or we invite you later to go to our website, summituuf.org, click on the visitors button, and fill out our online connection card, and someone will reach out to you. And now, to help us enter the spirit of worship, let us calm our minds and hearts while listening to our prelude.
In 1700, Johann Kuhnau's 6 biblical sonatas were published, setting Old Testament stories to music. And this is unusual in that the text preceding each little movement is meant to be spoken. So God has spoken to Gideon. This is Gideon, deliverer of the people of Israel. God has spoken to Gideon, promising victory if his soldiers battle the corrupt forces occupying Israel. Gideon has doubts. Gideon's fear at the great multitude of the enemy. An enemy soldier has had a dream of his camp being crushed. Gideon's courage grows. Gideon encourages his troops, and this will be the last part of this section, and the rest of it will be at the offertory.
Thank you, Barbara. It's wonderful to have your wonderful music and your narration. Thank you for that. For more than 10,000 years, the Kumeyaay people lived in harmony with the land. Fishers and hunters, farmers and artisans, chemists and physicists, astrologers and marine biologists. The history of their presence on this land is visible in many San Diego area places and in the thousands of artifacts preserved in collections like those housed at the Brona Museum. We want to acknowledge that our fellowship resides on unceded Kumeyaay land, which continues to be the home of the Kumeyaay people. We recognize the violent history of colonization in California and honor the legacy of the continuing presence of the Kumeyaay Nation. We have one announcement this morning, and that is from the Social Justice in Action Committee. They are working with other groups to sponsor the National Conflict Resolution Center's workshop on artful conversation and inclusive communication. This will be 4 two-hour sessions, and we will discover how to communicate needs in difficult situations in ways that help build relationships rather than hurt it. Explore how others perceive and process conflict, and recognize how you can adapt your style to work with them. For information or to sign up, please see me after the service or reach out to Doug Kay. So this morning I learned a wonderful new word from the West African term for storyteller, and that is griot, G-R-I-O-T. We are delighted to welcome to our pulpit today a storyteller, Ollis Mozon Jr, or Griot OJ, as he likes to be called. He loves to tell stories that energize hope, encourage faith, exude love, and enlighten minds. While serving as a Navy chaplain, he discovered the joys of storytelling, and over the years, he has shared his expanding repertoire of myths, legends, Bible stories, folk tales, and historical vignettes for community and cultural festivals, churches, and other historical presentations around the world. Welcome, Griot OJ. We are glad you are on Zoom. We are glad you on Zoom have chosen to join us this morning for a time of connection and reflection. I invite you to stay after the service for our community gathering, where we will have a chance to give feedback to Griot OJ or share a joy or concern with a larger group. And now for our chalice lighting.
This reading is from Paul's letter to the Philippians. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, whatever is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things.
And now please rise as you are able and sing our UU hymn, followed by our aspiration. Our UU aspiration. May love be the spirit of this fellowship. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. Mary?
Good morning. Hard switching on and from the mask. How's everybody today? Good. Happy October. It's a new month. Yesterday was my birthday. A little self-promotion. So my birthday is October 1st. Yeah, that was yesterday. So all the Libras, all the October babies in the house. So we have a new theme. Our new theme this month is courage. I'm putting on my badge of courage. So what do you think of when you think of courage? Think superhero, right? Marvel, Avengers, DC, all those superheroes. We get these big, bold people who have these great superpowers and do things, right? Think of bravery, think of being strong and fearless, right? Do you know the word courage comes from the word core? Core means heart, your heart. Corazon, that's your heart. So what if courage doesn't come from our strength, but it comes from our heart, our compassion, our love, right? So as Unitarian Universalists, we use our principles to help us. Tyler, can you put a slide up for me? We have on the back, you can also find these on the back of your order service if you have one, or for folks on Zoom, these are simplified version on the screen. We've had 7 principles for many years, and Summit has adopted the 8th principle, which we actually use in, I don't know if you've noticed on the back of our order service, is our preamble. So we center what we do with justice, a diverse, multicultural, beloved community. And we work together to accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in other institutions, right? And these are the simplified version, the simplified principles that we use with our kids, and we call them our promises, right? So we promise to respect inherent worth and dignity. We promise to offer fair and kind treatment. We promise to grow wiser together. We promise to use goodness and curiosity as our guide for a search for truth. We promise to listen deeply and decide together as a community before making decisions. And we work for peace and freedom and justice, value and care for the web of life, and build beloved community free of racism and oppression. And as I said, we work to dismantle that in ourselves as well as our institution. So these are all courageous acts. They're all acts of the heart, right? Is it easy to have respect for the worth and dignity of every person in the world? We sometimes have folks that we call first principle challenges. Like that's really hard for me to see worth and dignity in that person. So these promises are actions. There's something we have to do, like the actions of a superhero, and they're not easy. They call for courage. They call for our heart to be there, for us to center that. So, and while we all may look to various sacred texts, we don't all look to the same sacred texts, but we all look to using our heart as our guide. So today, our theme for this month is courage. And I encourage you to do your best, to live your love. That's all we can do. That's my story for you today. So thank you for listening. And now Simon and I are going to head back. We're going to make badges of courage today. So I hope you all enjoy your service. And thank you for your time. All right, Simon, we ready to head back?
Let me share with you a reading, a prayer by Dr. Maya Angelou. Father, Mother God, thank you for your presence during the hard and mean days, for then we have you to lean upon. Thank you for your presence during the bright and sunny days, for then we can share that which we have with those who have less. And thank you for your presence during the holy days, for then we are able to celebrate you and our families and our friends. For those who have no voice, we ask you to speak. For those who feel unworthy, we ask you to pour your love out like waterfalls of tenderness. For those who live in pain, we ask you to bathe them in the river of your healing. For those who are lonely, we ask you to shower upon them the light of hope. Dear Creator, you, the borderless sea of substance, we ask you to give to all the world that which we need the most. Peace.
We have a new hymn today, hymn 293 in the gray hymnal. It will also be projected on the screens. Please rise as you are able, and this will be fun.
One's without vocals.
O Star of Truth, number 293. O Star of Truth. The purpose of our fellowship is to encourage all who gather here to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering that allows us, a self-supported fellowship, to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit. For those at home, the link can be found in the chat, and it will take you directly to the donation location. And now we will gratefully accept your help during the musical offertory.
Here is the second part of Kuhnau's sonata. Gideon tricks his enemy by having his men all blow their trumpets at the same time. So they sound like a huge army, and they shatter the water pitchers, and they all yell, and here it comes. The enemy flees in terror and is pursued by the Israelites. The joy of the Israelites in the remarkable victory.
Well, now it's time. Just thank Rin for introducing me, and thank Pam for communicating to get me here. And I'm excited about being here, and I'm going to tell two stories. I'm going to tell them in a different order than they're printed bullets. I'm going to tell the Daystar story first, and then I'll tell the March story. So here's the Daystar story. Long time past, in the ancient kingdom of Radiant, there was the great and compassionate ruler, Daystar. Now, the Radiants were a very different type of people. They had many gifts and talents and capabilities, and they worked so well together. And then one day, nobody knows why or when or who or why, but somebody came with the idea that perhaps we should all wear the same color to reflect the work we do. So one who did a certain kind of work wore red hats, and the one who did another kind of work wore green hats, and some who did another kind of work wore white hats. So there was red and white and blue and green and purple and yellow. And that was nice. It made it a very colorful place. But then one day, nobody knows for sure, nobody knows why, somebody came with the idea that, you know, each one of us, we should wave our hat a different way. Well, they said, that sounds like a good idea. So maybe the Reds waved like this when Daystar came along, and the Blues would wave like this, and the Greens would wave like that, and the Yellows would wave like this. And it was sort of interesting to watch. And then one day, nobody knows why or when or where, somebody said, I think the way that we wear the hats and wave the hats is better than everybody else's. Well, after that got out, the other folks said, no, the way we do the hats is better than everybody else's. And the next thing you know, all the radiants were fighting one another about what kind of hat and how you should wave. And finally, Daystar said, my people, what's wrong with you? It does not matter what color is your hat or how you wave. It doesn't even matter if you have a hat. As long as you love me and each other and work together, that's what matters most. And that is the parable of Daystar. It was a beautiful spring day. The ocean breeze was moving, and I was marching down toward the oceanside amphitheater. And I was saying to myself, I don't want to be here. I mean, I'm walking on the sidewalk. They're walking in the middle of the street. I had my mask on. They were unmasked. And they were singing and chanting, Black Lives Matter. No pieces, no justice. Say their names. George, Brianna, Ahmaud, Emmett. And I said, I don't want to be here. I am a Black African-American. It's during COVID. I'm vulnerable. I'm over 65. But I marched. It seems like I've been marching all my life. I'm from Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. I've always been proud of that. Our nation's capital. Now, Daddy's family had moved up from South Carolina to get away from the oppression and segregation of the Jim Crow laws. But Mommy's family were third generation D.C. natives. And growing up in D.C. meant I was surrounded by the monuments, the memorials, the museums, the mantras of liberty and justice for all. Land of the free, home of the brave. Well, I have seen many times the actual documents in the archives, the promise of America. And I said, one day the America on paper will be the America of reality. Mom and Dad grew up in the same church. And they both pursued careers as teachers. And then they were able to buy a house. And in Northwest Washington, D.C., we bought a house in the mid-50s. And this was during the time of what's called white flight. All the young white families were moving out of D.C. to the Maryland and Virginia suburbs. And that's how D.C. became the chocolate city, surrounded by the vanilla suburbs. By the 70s, D.C. was about 75, 95% Black. But when my parents bought their house, Only the elderly whites were left in the neighborhood as all the young black families moved in. Our next door neighbors were German immigrants, Martha and Joseph Paps. Joseph with an F, not that PH. Daddy, the good Baptist deacon that he was, said, we're going to be good Samaritan type neighbors. And what that meant was that I got to mow the lawn and shovel the snow for our elderly next door neighbors. But then Mr. and Mrs. Pass would take grandma with them to go to the Old Street Market. And we used to laugh about it. We said, I bet people think grandma's their maid. But the reality is they were neighbors and friends. This was the beloved community. When they would come back from the market, Mr. Paps always stopped by the cemetery to visit the first Mrs. Paps. And while he sat there talking to her headstone, Grandma and Mrs. Paps, the second Mrs. Paps, just sat in the car and chatted and became real friends. This was the beloved community. But things were changing in America. When I was 10, I remember hearing about the Great March coming to Washington. And Reverend Dr. the King, that's how Grandma would say it, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther the King is coming to town. So at age 10, Mom and Dad took me down there because they were with the Watching Teacher Union marching in the march. And I was there when he said, I have a dream, and went on to describe what I believe was the beloved community. But you know what I really remember most about that day? It was hot. And all these people, they were with their skirts pulled up above their knees and their pants rolled up. They were standing in the reflecting pool. I was appalled. Daddy always said, you don't wade in the reflecting pool. You look at the reflection of the monument or the reflection of the Lincoln Memorial. You don't wade. And now these people were putting their tired, sweaty, marching feet in my reflecting pool. But I said, you know, maybe this is the beloved community. Because together, blacks and whites sang, black and white together, black and white together, we shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. And then, a few years later, after the laws had been changed, we went to test the laws of this beloved community in our Chevy station wagon from DC to California, hitting many holiday inns along the way. We said, we're allowed, we're accepted. And we thought we met some of the nicest people. Why, every time we went to one of the motel pools, well, the white parents would always say, Johnny, Sally, come on out the pool now. Let them have it now. It's their turn. And we said, these are the nicest people in the world. They let us have the pool all to ourselves. Little did I know, until years later, that they just didn't want their children in the pool with us. That was not the beloved community. But we kept living. We kept searching for the dream. It wasn't at Disneyland. It wasn't at Knott's Berry Farm or University City, but we had a lot of fun anyway. Then, a few more years passed. Dr. King is assassinated. And the hope of a beloved community was destroyed for a while there. And people rioted and destroyed. And one night, there was a knock on the door. It was Mr. Paps. Mr. Mozon, my friends out in the suburbs said that if I put Soul Brother on my house, they won't burn my house down. Of course, Daddy gave that assignment to me. So I got the glass wax. It was this sort of pink lotion. And you take a wet sponge and you could write. I mean, sometimes you can make Christmas decoration stuff, but this day I got that wet sponge and I wrote S-O-U-L. S-O-U-L-B-R-O-T-H-A. Soul brother. I put that on Mr. Pap's room, and I put it on our house too. And then I went and told Daddy, that ain't fair, Daddy. They killed Dr. King. You make me white soul brother on a white man's door. And Daddy said, son, that's what Dr. King would want you to do. So we continue to march and search for a beloved community. So by 1971, there was an opportunity given to me that I could go to one of the predominantly white institutions down in the South for college. And I said, what better way to fight the civil rights law than to get there on the front line? It was rough. There had to be marching and protests there, as well as pursuing your academics. Why? Because of our protests and our marching down there, we got black hair products. I mean, really. Brill Cream and Vitalis doesn't do much for black hair. And we got Black Studies programs and some Black history. We had a Black homecoming queen, and Dr. Maya Angelou became a professor at Wake Forest University. And we started a Black gospel choir, and white students wanted to join us. And this is the beloved community. The campus chaplain had us singing in the chapel. Wow. And time continues to go on. And I had a chance to go after seminary, be the associate pastor of a church. It used to be an all-white church, but as a neighborhood changed, they said, we will not move. We will be here, minister to people who live in this neighborhood. So they had a white pastor and a Black assistant pastor for youth and community ministry. Was that the beloved community? It was getting better. And then came the time to go into the Navy as a chaplain. Serving in the U.S. military is one of the best ways to experience the cross-section of America, of all the diversity and uniqueness and cultures, rural, urban, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian. One thing I like about the military is that a lot of other countries, the military looks like pretty much all look the same. What does American soldier look like? Everything in the world. That's one thing that sort of makes us so good. But let me not get off the track. I had a chance to tend to the souls of the spiritual needs of sailors and Marines, but also help the Navy with the diversity programs. And I began telling stories to help with that, build that beloved community among people who are abandoned brothers and sisters. So I thrived, I survived, I got promoted, and I retired. Because this is America, my America. Then it's May 25th, 2020. It was Memorial Day. Now, I wasn't celebrating because of Memorial Day. I was celebrating because May 25th, 2020 was my mommy's 90th birthday. And we had been planning for months this great family gathering in Florida for her birthday. But no Mozon or Payne or Enoch was about to get and travel anywhere during the pandemic. So we adapted very quickly. And at the age of 90, Mommy had a Zoom birthday party. She loves technology. She's sitting in her little apartment, and her family and friends from all over the country were there on her iPad. And she had good memories. She remembered all the years of growing up and living and teaching in DC. And because it was election year, she also remembered what it was like to work the polls. And she continued to volunteer with the League of Women Voters. And that year, she was really excited because one of her sorority sisters was a candidate for vice president. And my brothers and sisters, we used to laugh. We tell the stories of how Daddy would drag us down every 4 years for the inaugural parade. It is frigid in DC in January. You hate inaugural parades, although I love parades. But the inaugural parade in January, but it was a great party on Zoom. And then 2 hours later, I found myself screaming at the TV, "No, not again!" As I watched that policeman with his knee on the neck of that Black man. And then all the Black Lives Matter marches all over the world. And I remember talking to Mom about it, and she said, I could hear her pain. She said, I cannot believe that after all these years, we're still marching for the same things. So when those kids from my church, the Black, the brown, and the white kids, helped organize that march, I had to be there. I marched for my mother and my daddy for all those years they marched. I marched for my son who, in solidarity, who was marching in Denver. I marched as my wife and daughter were praying for my safety. I marched for the ancestors and the contemporaries because the beloved community can and will come to America one day. As Langston Hughes says, I too sing America. So we march and we talk and we listen and we pray and we vote and we serve. God bless you real good. Still got 2 more minutes. This is my absolutely one of my favorite stories to tell. The hyena and the jackal went to the old lion and said, Brother Lion, will you teach us how to hunt? Lion didn't want to be bothered with those creatures, but the jackal and the hyena were scavengers, and they're always trying to take his leftovers. So he took them out, taught them to hunt. He taught them how to crawl low and slow and pounce. And they got a big pile of animals that had been hunted and captured. And Brother Lion said, Brother Hyena, you divide the catch. Hyena said, okay, I'll divide it. So Hyena started moving piles, and he had 3 piles. He said, Brother Lion, that pile right there is for you. That second pile, that's for the jackal. And this pile here is for me. Lion drew back his big paw and bam! Knocked him off into the underbush. And he said, Jackal, you divide the catch. Jackal said, Brother Lion, it's already divided. Hyena just didn't explain it right. That first pile, that's your lunch. That second pile, that's your dinner. And that third pile, that's your breakfast. And I'm out of here. And that's enough for today. God bless you real good.
Thank you, Griot OJ. What a storyteller. And you can tell he's a great storyteller by what he gave us and shared with us, but also he had 2 minutes left. And so give a storyteller a couple minutes and they'll take it. So now let's rise and sing Blue Boat Home. And rise as you are able to sing Blue Boat Home, and then please stand while we extinguish the chalice, because we're going to rise and sing our closing song right after that. Blue Boat Home. Rio OJ, would you please extinguish the chalice while I read? There's too much hardship in this world to not find joy every day. There's too much injustice in this world to not right the balance every day. There's too much pain in this world to not heal every day. Each of us ministers to a weary world. Let us go forth now and do that which calls us to make the world more loving, more compassionate, and more filled with the grace of divine presence every day. Our closing circle song. Now we're going to have our community gathering, chance and opportunity for people to share joys and concerns, interact with the Gria OJ. And I guess, do we have a